Ito ang Oragon Internet Television. Maaasahan sa balanced news in public affairs, education, music and information gamit ang mga bagong teknolohiya sa pamamahayag. Maaasahan sa katotohanan, kaagapay ng mamamayan sa pagkikipag-ugnayan sa pamahalaan. Oragon Internet Television Broadcasting.
Magandang umaga po mga kaibigan. Welcome to another edition of our Tapatan sa Aristocrat. Marami po tayong mapapag-usapan ngayon sapagkat may kinalaman po ito sa talumpati ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte mamayang hapon. Alam po ninyo, magtatalumpati nga ang Pangulo at magbibigay ng kaukulang ulat sa bayan. Ano pa ba yung kanyang prioridad sa nalalabing ilang buwan ng kanyang panunungkulan? Inaasang mababanggit ng Pangulo ang mga nagawa sa nakalipas na 5 taon at mga prioridad sa nalalabing ilang buwan sa pamamagitan ng pagpapanday ng mga batas mula sa House of Representatives at maging sa Senado. Ano ba ang maituturing na accomplishments ng Duterte administration? Ano bang highlights nito sa rural development? Kumanda ba ang buhay ng mga maralitang taga-bukid? Sa mga mag-aaral at mga nasa iba't ibang NGO, yumabong ba ang pagtalakay sa iba't ibang issue? Sa kalagayan ng mga manggagawa, natupad ba yung mga pinangako tulad ng ENDO? Yan ang ating pag-uusapan ngayon. Ano ba yung mga naganap ng mga nakalipas na panahon? Siyempre, meron ding sinasabi na obligasyon ng Pangulo ayon sa saligang batas ang pagbibigay ng State of the Nation. At ito ay sa harapan ng joint session ng Congress. Today, we're joined by the Honorable Edicio de la Torre, Vice Chairman ng Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement at dating Director General ng TESDA. Kasama rin po natin the Honorable Etta Rosales, former Chair of the Commission on Human Rights at dating Chair ng Akbayan. Kasama rin natin si Attorney Sonny Matula, Chairperson ng NAGKAISA at Pangulo ng Federation of Free Workers. And we're joined by Professor Bernard Karganilla, History Professor sa UP Manila at columnist sa Malaya Business Insight. So let's start our discussions today. Siguro, hingan ko muna ng historical account si Professor Bernard Karganilla. Ano ba yung mga nakalipas na SONA ng Pangulo? Hindi lang ni Pangulong Duterte, pero ayon sa kasaysayan, ano-ano ang mga naganap noon? Good morning and welcome.
Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Very briefly, nakailang presidente ba muna tayo para makita natin kumpletong listahan, 'di ba, ng SONA. So pabalik, 'di ba? Duterte, Noynoy, GMA, ERAP, FBR, Cory, Marcos, Diosdado Macapagal, Carlos P. Garcia, Ramon Magsaysay, Elpidio Quirino, Manuel Rojas, Sergio Osmeña, Manuel Quezon. Pabalik to Macario Sakay, Miguel Malvar, Emilio Aguinaldo, at ang unang Pangulo ng Haring Bayang ng Republika ng Haring Bayang Katagalugan, Andres Bonifacio. So, sa aking pananaw, ang unang-unang SONA, pero hindi pa yung format ng SONA na alam natin ngayon. Yung unang mensahe sa sambayanan, yung kay Andres Bonifacio. At kung papayagan mo akong mag-share screen, meron akong excerpts.
Sige.
Ang pangalan ng dokumento, naka-disable pa yung screen share. Ang pangalan ng dokumento,
pwede na.
Ito, pakita natin. Ang dapat mabatid ng mga Tagalog. Lumabas sa pahayagan ng Katipunan, ng Kalayaan. So, merong English version, Mas mukhang dalawa yung Tagalog version, edited yung lumabas sa Kalayaan. Pero yung isang susing talata dyan, itong naka-highlight ng yellow, itinuturo ng katwiran ang tayo'y umasa sa ating sarili at huwag ang tayin sa ibang ating kabuhayan. So, maiksi lang naman yung sinulat ni Andres Bonifacio, ni Pangulong Bonifacio. Siyempre, nakalatag nga ron na yung kondisyon, yung kalagayan natin sa ilalim ng mga kolonisador. Pero ito talaga panawagan na bilang individual at bilang ang termino nga niya bayang tinubuan, no? Hindi bansa, bayang tinubuan ay tumindig. So kasarinlan. So sa akin ito yung pinaka-importanting kung ang SONA ay mensahe sa bayan, ano, kasi yung konsepto ng pagiging bansa galing kanila Pangulong Bonifacio at sa Katipunan. So, technically, siya yung unang state of the nation. Dahil sila yung nagbigay ng konsepto na isang bansa o haring bayan nga yung term ang kapuluan na Pilipinas ang tawag ng mga Kastila, pero lahat nga ng nakatira dito sa kapuluan, nasa nasa Castilla, maging Ilocos man o Bisaya, ay Tagalog din. Kaya yung haring bayan Katagalugan, ibig sabihin country, yung haring bayan, tapos ang pangalan ng bansa na yon Katagalugan. Tapos kung papaspasan natin ng konti, no, yung isa pang critical na halimbawa ng SONA, pero hindi pa kasi SONA ang tawag nun, saka Commonwealth pa Pilipinas nun bilang mensahe ng Chief Executive sa sambayanan, siyempre yung isang critical yung kay lahat ng addresses ni Manuel Quezon dahil sa termino niya nangyari yung World War II So dito sa excerpt na to, siyempre English, no? Ang binibigyan din na ang Pilipinas bahagi ng original na United Nations. Hindi yung UN na alam natin ngayon, yung lumaban sa mga pasista. At isa pang halimbawa mula kay Quezon, kasi sa nakita kong pattern, yung unang pangako nasa inaugural address Tapos kung natupad ba yung sinabi sa inaugural address, nasa SONA. Wala naman SONA nun talaga si Quezon, pero may mga addresses siya tuwing anniversary ng Commonwealth. So dito sa third inaugural address, kasi kaligitnaan to ng World War II, ang in-emphasize dito na hindi tayo bayan ng mga alipin. So, siyempre sa official gazette, makikita natin yung iba't ibang SONA mula dun sa 1946. Pangulong Manuel Rojas.
Okay.
Tapos nakalagay nga ron, it is my 1946, June 3. First State of the Nation address ni Manuel Rojas. It is my constitutional duty to report to you on the state of the nation. So lahat ng SONA, yun nga dahil constitutional duty, bagay nga na nabanggit mo. Tingnan mo lang, ano ba yung mga, kung lalapatan natin ng SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Ano ba yung mga tampok? Kagaya niyan, yung isang na-discover ko dito sa unang SONA, yun, sabi ni Rojas, famine is a strong possibility. Diba? So, isang dapat na binabantayan. So, pumili na lang tayo. Anong SONA ba yung gusto nating tignan para kung gusto nating ihambing dun sa SONA ng incumbent.
Okay.
Yun lamang, Carmelo, at maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat. Magtungo tayo sa kanayunan mula sa Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement. Matanong natin si Ginoong Edicio
kilos magninyog na nagmarcha noon, no? At pumunta kay Pinoy, nag-issue ng executive order, na-release na ang coconut levy, naglabas pero challenge sa Supreme Court, so inatras. Pero sabi ni Digong noon, promise ko, pag ako'y na-elect, itutuloy natin yan. So kahit paano naman, at that level, may isa siyang natupad na pangako. Kahit medyo gahol na sa oras, pumasa na yung yung law na gamitin na ang coconut levy fund na pinolekta panahon ni Marcos and across the years na invest San Miguel at iba pa para tulungan ng magninyog. That is tungkol sa magninyog. Pero wala pang programa kaya naghihintay pa. But on the level of rice, yung ating basic staple crops. Kasi bago ako nag-PRRM, Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement, by the way, 1952 yan tinayo, panahon ni Magsaysay. It will be 70 years next year. Ang una kong involvement sa rural ay naging chaplain ako ng Federation of Free Farmers, panahon ni Jerry Montemayor. Ako'y bagong pare, no? And ang FFF, ang isa sa medyo matindi ang criticism dahil yung parang nag-yield si Pangulong Duterte sa stronger influence ng medyo neoliberal sa kabinete across the administration. So masyadong niliberalize ang importation mula sa rice, bagamat may debate, nakatulong ba yan, hindi nakatulong, baka nakatulong sa ibang consumers but not to the farmers. At ngayon umaangal pati yung producers ng pork, ng chicken at iba pa. Kasi nga masyadong binuksan, no? And so isa yun sa hambalos na ngayon ay umaangal ang maraming mga nasa kanayunan. Tapos related sa binanggit ni Prof. Normally pag inisip natin kanayunan, inisip natin land. Eh sabi nga ni Asis Perez, dating director ng BIFAR, the Philippines is a maritime country. First source of protein is fish. And ang point ngayon, ang isang umaang ngayon, mga mangingisda dahil nga parang pinapasok ng commercial fishing, ang mga municipal waters. Pero in particular, at yan ang tumutumbok dito sa West, interesting, kanayunan, pagkain, pero naging sovereignty rin because ang ating exclusive economic zone ay mas marami yatang nahuhuling galunggong ang China pagkatapos nire-export sa atin. Kaya sabi ng mga ibang mangingisda, ano ba yan? May relasyon ang national sovereignty sa protection ng ating natural resources. So, in addition to the sector, may bumubukas na usapan sa mga sektor na mukhang ang national policy, yung binanggit na avoid famine, to ensure food security, kailangan ang mga patakaran ng pamahalaan ay binibigyan ng pagkiling. Siyempre, mas ipoprotect mo ang interest ng ating producers at consumers. Pareho naman at yung pagbalanse nun. Siguro, ang punto ko na lang dyan ay yung pinag-usapan natin bago nagsimula ang programa. But there are some interesting and bright stories, ikwento ko later, na initiative sa local level ng mga people's organization, kooperatiba, in collaboration with local governments na nagpo-produce ng nagpo-promote ng food security. But at the national level, parang mas disappointed na ang general policy direction ng national government mukhang mas, sabihin natin, kiling sa understandable consumers. Kasi yun ang maingay na dito sa Metro Manila at the expense of producers. Parang hindi sapat ang pag-balance ng dalawa. Ang tendency talaga, umaangal na yung producers na, okay, in the long run, baka they'll give up at saka mag-shift na lang sa other economic activities. Yun.
Okay po. Yeah, thank you. Simula pa lamang yan, mga kaibigan. Professor Etta Rosales, kayo po ay dati ring mambabatas. Ano yung recollection ninyo ng mga SONA na nadaluhan ninyo noong kayo ay mambabatas mula sa Akbayan?
Nakabukas na ba ako?
Opo.
Oo, kanina pa tayo nagkukwentuhan. Ang SONA natatandaan ko, yung mga SONA na, well, I don't know that the time of ERAP paved the way, yung mga SONA ni ERAP. Hindi ko siya natatanda ng mga SONA ni ERAP. Pero, para sa akin, hindi ko kasi natatandaan yung mga SONA nila. Ang natatandaan ko, yung mga panahon na yun, ano yung konteksto nung inilaban namin ng mga legislation. And ang matindi sa akin, when we started, I started 1998, panahon ni ERAP kasi yan. And ang unang nilabas na namin, yung party list, kasi that was the first time that the party list was actually engaged in as elected representatives of government, of the Congress. And nung panahon na yon, ang concept ng party list as a law that was already passed for implementation in 1998 was to democratize. Kasi umaangkop nga dun sa mga sinabi ni Ed at saka sinabi ng ni Professor Karganilla na this is to democratize the voice and the access to resources of the poor people. Now, because of this, ang let somebody talk muna. Masakit ang aking
Uy, okay po. Sige, babalik po tayo. Take it easy, ma'am. I hope it's nothing serious. Okay.
Trigeminal ko to.
Okay po, sige. Sonny, mula sa hanay ng paggawa, ano ang kalagayan ng mga manggagawa na kabilang sa Federation of Free Workers at kabilang sa NAGKAISA?
Thank you, Camilo, sa imbitasyon. Ang kasalukuyang kalagayan ay hirap na hirap pa rin. At hirap walang bakuna. Naghanap ng bakuna yung mga manggagawa natin. Nag-survey ako nung 2 linggong nakaraan. Hindi pa nga umabot ng 10% yung nabakunahan sa mga kasapi ng FFW. Ganon din sa ibang mga federation o sentro na kasapi ng NAGKAISA Labor Coalition ay kulang na kulang pa rin ang bakuna. At ang pangalawa ay siyempre maraming mga manggagawa ngayon ang walang trabaho. Kung may trabaho man ay skeletal pa rin ang pasukan. Maliban doon sa ibang mga kumpanya na malalaki, ay karamihan ng mga kumpanya ay skeletal pa rin ang trabaho. At siyempre, ay napapansin namin na lumalawak yung contractualisasyon. Balik, na nakikita namin nung unang mga taon ng Duterte administration ay yung mga employer ay nagboboluntaryo nga na mag-regularize na kanilang mga empleyado. Pero sa kasalukuyan ay bumalik tayo doon sa dati na contractual na paggawa ang naging norms, no? Instead na exception lang sana yan. Kaya dismayado kami nung dinito ng Pangulong Duterte yung kanyang certified bill mismo noong 2019. At palagay namin itong 2021 SONA ng Pangulo ay parang hindi na ata naniniwala kami sa mga sinasabi ng Pangulo at At siguro noon ay naniniwala ang marami sa pangalawa o pangatlong beses na mga pagbibigay ng pag-asa ay siguro nawala na ng pag-asa yung karamihan ng mga manggagawa. Kaya kami ay nananawagan na nga na huwag na siyang tumakbong pagka-vice presidente, wakasan niya na ang kanyang termino at magpahinga na lang po siya. Maraming salamat.
Okay. Balikan
Pwede na
natin si
siguro
Professor
ako.
Etta. Yes, ma'am. Pwede na po.
O baka pwede na medyo nakapahinga. Yung party list system, bali isang batas ito na nilaban namin even before the 11th Congress para maipatupad, no? And kasi nung una appointed
Opo.
sila for 3
Iba't
terms.
ibang sektor.
Oo, nung tinatanong ko sa kanila, kumusta naman yung inyong kalagayan nung in-appoint kayo as sectoral party list representatives. Sabi nila hindi gaano maganda kasi ang trato sa amin nitong mga elected district representatives para kaming second class citizens dahil wala naman kaming hindi naman kami hinalal. So wala kaming say. Wala kaming karapatan na pumapel kapantay nila kasi sila halal, kami hindi. So yun yung mahalagang lesson na you have to be elected to be considered as part in order to. Tapos pangalawa, yung party list system was intended to democratize yung democratize yung boses ng mga mangingisda, manggagawa, no, mga maralita dito sa Kongreso para pwede silang gumawa ng sarili nilang mga batas. Kaya that was the party list system. Napakahalaga nun. And sinimulan namin, at ako nga yung pangunahin, isa ako dun sa mga una. At saka yung sa FFW yata, si Montemayor, yung
FFF. Federation of Free Farmers po.
FFF pala. Sani, no? Oo, si Aba.
Leody Montemayor.
Si Montemayor. Ano ang pangalan niya?
Leonardo.
Leonie Montemayor. So siya yung una sa ABA, yung pang-organisasyon niya. Tapos kami, bali multi-sectoral political party, pero for the marginalized then and so on. Tapos yung Sanlakas. So kami yung mga una, tsaka yung kababaihan, Abansi Pinay. So maganda. Dahil talagang tunay na kinatawan namin yung mga marginal. At ang aming pangangampanya para manalo kami, ipaliwanag kung ano ang party list system sa radyo at saka sa TV. Yun. Tapos, pangalawa, yung pinakuan ko na naman yung compensation bill. Oo, yun. Final namin yung compensation bill laban kay Marcos. But we just filed that. And yung party list system was during 1998, pero yung compensation bill was during the time of si Pinoy.
Okay, Noy na po yun.
Oo, at saka yung ICC. I also was campaigned hard for that, for its ratification. Pero kay Pinoy yung kanyang kwan. So, doon na muna.
Okay. Yeah. I do recall I was very young or new with Radio Veritas. I was on my second week as an employee of Veritas, and I was assigned to cover the House of Representatives in time for the SONA. And I do recall asking lawmakers of their reactions to the SONA. And one of the persons I asked was Edsel Lagman of Albay. Because I also stayed in Albay, kaya mas madaling makausap yung mga Bicolano. Makakamit ako ng kota. Sabi ko lang kay Edsel, anong tingin mo sa SONA ni FVR? Sabi niya, I realized I was being taken to Disneyland. Parang napakaganda ng mga pinagsasabi, pero mukhang malayo sa katotohanan. I don't know, Professor Karganilla, Ganun ba yung tendency ng isang nakaupong Pangulo to paint a very rosy picture of what's going on in the country? It may not necessarily be happening, it may be fictional, pero ano ba ang tingin mo sa pagsusuri sa kasaysayan?
Ay, hindi palaging rosy picture. Unang-una, tandaan natin, constitutional obligation nila na mag-deliver ng State of the Nation address. So, depende rin sa Pangulo. Sabi ko nga, maganda tignan bilang SWOT analysis Natural, i-highlight nila yung kalakasan, yung mga accomplishments nila. Pero, hindi lahat ng SONA, yung good news lang ang binigay. Sabi ko nga kay Manuel Rojas, yung una niyang SONA, he was warning the people, yung famine. Kahit yung isang SONA ni Marcos, yung una niyang SONA,
1965.
sabi niya, I was met with disbelief, no? When I said during my inaugural address that we were in a state of crisis. So may mga warning din dun sa, kasi ang dulo dapat niya recommendation, pareho nung kay Carlos P. Garcia, yung pangalawa niyang SONA. Nakalista talaga yung mga recommendation. Pero bago nun, kailangan bigyan mo ng diagnosis ng mga problema. Diba? Paano magiging rosy yan? Kailangan nga may recommendation ka sa dulo. Ano ba problema yung sinusolve mo? So, mas naalala nga natin yung pag tinignan mo nga isa-isa yung mga SONA, maraming laman tukol sa ekonomiya. Report Diba parang report card. Hindi talaga natin maalala sa kasaysayan ng mga history teachers, yung mga facts and figures na yon. Maliban na lang kung economic history yung tinuturo mo. Kaya boring nga ang dating.
Okay. All right. Pero balikan natin mula sa isang dating mambabatas, Congresswoman Etta. Yung bang SONA, sabi nga ni Professor Karganilla, dapat magkaroon ng good news at bad news. Pero di ba usually sinasabi ng presidente, ito yung priority measures ko, ito yung priority bills. Nangyayari po ba iyon? Na ipatutupad po ba? Nagagawa bang batas yung nire-recommenda ng Pangulo?
Hindi nga Kasi nung una si GMA, sabi niya priority yung compensation, yung Marcos compensation bill. Pero dahil naging critical kami sa kanya, abay, ano ginawa niya? Sa panahon ng una yung SONA, sabi niya gano'n, I am going to give priority. Meron siyang grade A, grade B, grade C na schedules of priority. At saka yung kanyang pagtingin doon sa pagpapatupad ng compensation bill, nilagay niya sa grade A priority at ang ibig lamang sabihin nito ay magkaroon na, ipasa na yung compensation bill para sa ganon, maipatupad na yung pangako na ibabalik ang democracy sa mga Marcos, sa mga biktima ng mga Marcoses, bibigyan ng compensation at reparation. Pero at the end of the day, dahil critical kami sa kanya and we wanted to impeach her, ayaw na niya, binawi niya yung kanyang priority na binigay sa SONA. Yun.
Opo. Pero katulad niyan, pag sinabi ng presidente, talking of what's going on now, na hindi ka na speaker, somebody will get to be a speaker, tapos sa Senado naman, halos karamihan ay kakampi na. So, hindi kaya yung mga priority measures magkakatotoo na. Sabi nga nung ilan I don't know whether this is justified, yung Congress istampad ni Duterte, Congresswoman Rosales.
Oo naman. Halatang-halata naman yan Pagkatapos actually si Duterte, what he has done, a lot of people say, hindi naman totoo na walang demokrasya, walang press freedom. Sa totoo lang naman, pwede naman pa rin kayong pumuna sa kanya. Ayan, puna kayo ng puna. Wala naman siyang ginagawa, hindi naman niya kayo sinasaktan. Ano ba yung sinasabi ninyo na wala ng press freedom, wala ng freedom to organize, wala ng yung marami pa rin yan. Pero ang ginagawa ni Duterte talaga, it is eroding little by little, little by little, little by little. Kaya yung ginawa niya, halimbawa dito kay Cayetano at Velasco, pinili niya si Velasco because Velasco is a blind follower of Duterte. Come hell or high water, the young fellow is always able to justify how he will make sure that Congress is unified in order to follow Duterte's priority bills. And Duterte's priority bills are always related to what is good for him politically. Yan naman yun eh. Oh, so yun. So that was a case in point, no? But my goodness, si Cayetano, talagang under Cayetano's reign, ang ABS-CBN talagang cancel yung franchise nito. Dami niyang ginawa talaga sa Kongreso in favor of Duterte. Pero nung naramdaman ni Duterte na parang pumoposisyon na siya, hiwalay, no? Dito kay Duterte mismo, kinuha na niya si Velasco para mapalitan na si Cayetano. And that's how it really looked in the way, lalong-lalo na nung katatapos ng cancellation of the franchise. And it was good for Duterte to make sure na napalitan na si Cayetano, but Velasco himself sounds like a very nice fellow. If you listen to him, he's always ang tawag niya sa sarili niya, listening leader. Pinakikinggan daw niya lahat. And then he tries to unify them. Pero ang direksyon ng kanyang unities ay lagi pagpatungo kay kung ano yung gusto ni Duterte.
Okay, so one way to keep the people united is to have an equally distributed gravy or butter and sugar to the bread. Ganun nga po kaya yun? So you get the majority?
Well, equally distributed. Distributed fear among all of them, no? So pag natatakot kasi sila, then they keep silent. Ang concept kasi niya ng press freedom, tinatakot niya sila unti-unti. Hindi naman niya kina-cancel out lahat. Katulad nito, meron pa tayong tapatan sa aristocrat, no? Nagsasalita naman tayo. Unlike Marcos, when Marcos declared martial law, everything was canceled. And he used the military and its strength para pasukan lahat. And canceled all the democratic institutions. No? Institutions of expression, institutions of policy making, and so on and so forth. Ang ginagawa ni Duterte, unti-unti niyang ini-erode. Like the House of Reps. Hindi mo naman sasabihin talagang yung libreng-libre yan. Kontrolado niya, hawak na hawak niya. At saka sa LGUs, ano ba ang ginawa niya noong 2019? Hindi pa nilagay niya sa narcotics list. Anybody who dared go against him, malalagay ka na lang sa narcotics list. And heaven help him kung he will still be allowed to be alive, depende sa kung paano kang posisyon. And so a number of people really are silenced into fear. That is not reflected, that is not explicitly expressed, but it is actually felt. And silencing into fear is one way of control over the working democratic institutions.
Okay, all right. Ma'am, pwede po kayong mag-break muna dahil may interview pala sa iyo sa kabila. Baka magalit naman sa amin, Hihintayin ka namin makabalik kaagad.
Sige.
Pero, Mga kaibigan, this may be a very personal question, but I will have to ask Ed De La Torre about this. You were once an SBD, a missionary. What prompted you to leave the ministry and go to serve the people the way you served the people when you left the ministry?
Well,
It
tama
may
ka,
be a bit
personal.
personal.
Personal, pero ano naman, it's a public, kasi nga nung na-ordain ako 1968 eh. So yung SBD, meron siyang parang international journal tawag Verbum, the word, no?
Yeah.
Yung 50 years after, nag-solicit sila ng articles sa mga na-ordain ng 1968. At 50 years later, looking back at 68, anong nangyari? Bagamat sa SBD dinirect yun, yung dating Superior General, the first Filipino Superior General ng SBD, si Tony Peña said, pwede bang XBD? So sabi niya, Ed, sumulat ka nga. So sinulat ko. Ang dalawang dahilan eh. Ang una, internally, and to the SBD's credit, panahon namin yun na mas lumalim yung pagtuturo sa amin ng social teachings of the church, no? At saka yung tinatawag nun sa post-Vatican II na preferential option for the poor, no? Kumbaga in simple terms, mahal ng Diyos ang lahat, pero may dagdag na pagkiling sa mga naaapi, mahihirap ganyan, no? So tapos nangyari, serendipity, that was the time si Jerry Montemayor met the SBD and talked to us. So marami sa aming mga seminarista sumali sa pag-organisa at pag-training ng mga leaders ng Federation of Free Farmers. So kung tuloy-tuloy lang yun, walang problema. The SBD allowed me to be a chaplain of the Federation of Free Farmers. Basta part-time, magtuturo pa rin ako sa seminaryo. Two things happened. Unang-una, siyempre, yung by the time, activism yun, maraming debate about kaya pa ba ang reforma? O dapat talaga revolution, gano'n. Tapos nag-martial law. Panahon ng martial law, to some extent, kahit ako politically involved na ako, pagka naib pa rin ako, akala ko walang mangyayari sa akin, mabuti na lang. Nung gabi, bago mag-martial law, I had to stay out dahil late na, hindi ako makauwi sa seminaryo. Ayun pala, nung gabi yun, pumunta na ang military. Kinatok ako dyan sa Quezon City. Sabi, Padre, nandun na ang kwarto mo sa krame. So, wala naman ako ron. Pero next morning, nung ako'y pumunta ron, sabi ng mga seminarista, parang, takbo, magtago ka, huhulihin ka. So, nagtago ako, ganyan. Ngayon, because of that nga, hinatak na ako ng underground. Sabi na, wala na mangyayari dyan. Sumali ka na sa amin. So actually, sabi ko, pangit naman. Ang rami mga tinulungan ko na pero, by the way, all that time I was in prison,
Pelas ng silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa mandulupin, di ka pasisikin. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong baka, may dilag ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdidingding, ang bituin at araw niya kailan kamay di magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng walhati pagsimba, buhay langit sa
Please remain standing for the nation's prayer.
Ama naming makapangyarihan sa lahat, narito po kami upang magpasalamat sa lahat ng biyayang binibigay mo po sa amin, sa aming mayaman na kalikasan, mga kakayahan at tibay ng loob. Maraming salamat po. Basbasan mo po at gabayan ang aming mahal na inang bayan at ang aming mga leader na pangalagaan ang aming kinabukasan bilang susunod na henerasyon ng aming mahal na Pilipinas. Gabayan mo po kami sa harap ng pandemya at protektahan mo po kami. Ipakita mo po sa amin ang tamang daan upang malagpasan namin ito. At lahat ng mga darating pang sakuna, kalamidad o anumang hamon. Lahat ng ito ay tinatanggap namin bilang pagsubok lamang upang lalo kaming sumampalataya sa iyo. Naway matamo namin ang ganap na pagkakaisa bilang isang bayan. Turuan mo po kaming maging mapagkumbaba at laging unahin ang aming kapwa bago ang aming mga sarili, lalo na ang mga kapuspalad, mga dumaraing at ang mga nais na marinig, pati na rin ang mga kababayan namin naghahatid ng mahalagang serbisyo sa kapwa, maging dito sa Pilipinas o sa ibang bansa. Patatagin mo po sana kami bilang tao at bilang isang bayan na laging nananalig at naniniwalang hindi mo po kami pababayaan kailanman. Salamat Panginoon sa lahat ng iyong blessing sa amin. Ito po ang aming dasal. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of Congress, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Kindly sit down. By far, this is the most beautiful SONA crowd that ever happened here. So many beautiful faces. And we only have to guess when you see the full face of the person. Senate President Vicente Soto III and the honorable members of the Senate, House Speaker Lord Alan J. Velasco, and the honorable members of the House of Representatives, Vice President Maria Leonor Robredo, former Presidents Fidel V. Ramos, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, Joseph Ejercito Estrada, the Chief Justice Alexander Gismondo, and the Justices of the Supreme Court, Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdia, and the members of the Cabinet, Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency Archbishop Charles John Brown, and the distinguished members of the Diplomatic Corps. My fellow government workers, and of course, to my lovely wife, Hanilet, mga mahal kong kababayan, when I assumed the presidency 5 years ago, dominant in my mind were the dreams and visions of a better life for all Filipinos. I saw them as reachable through the institution of reforms and radical changes in both in the structure of government and the mode of governance. Changes designed responsibility, accountability, and all in consonance with the truth that the public office is a public trust. When I ran for the presidency, I just made fundamental processes, and strangely, you can count them by the fingers of your hand. I made those changes which I thought that was really, there was time and doable. To offer free education, it's there already. The universal health care, nandiyan na po. The fight against illegal drugs, criminality, and corruption, and the development structure, including free irrigation and other big-ticket projects, which I thought I did not have the funds to do it. But perchance, among others, they were done in my term. Today, as I approach my term, my end of my term, I have less visions, but more remembrances. But mine is not to review or to second guess what might have been, but to bear and respond with the urgency of the unforeseen events as they unfold. Even before I took the oath of office, and everyone else, I suppose, knew the gravity of the enormity of the problems that the country was facing. And precisely because of that awareness, I was driven to hasten implementation of changes which I believe the country needed, keeping in mind that the Constitution afforded me only 6 years to make those changes happen. Making a difference within the constitutional time frame is what I was up against. But no one gets by legally without warming to the needle's eye of the constitutional imperatives. That is why I cajoled, I shielded, I pushed, and I tangled with men of wealth and influence who were oblivious to the angst and pleas of the weak and impoverished. And for that, I was pilloried to no. end. But I did not succumb. To the attacks, and neither did I allow criticisms, however intense, dampen my determination and initiatives, because my purpose was pure and unpolluted. While we were busy instituting reforms, the twin augurs of illegal drugs and corruption laid low for a while, only to resurface as still with us. And make no mistake about it, corruption is but another term of stealing people's money, dashing in its wake a nation's goals and aspirations. Due to the brilliant programs and excellent work of our economic managers and the extraordinary cooperation between the executive and legislative branches of government, our economy with investor confidence was poised to leapfrog from the company into the company of the world's fastest growing economies until COVID-19 pandemic stalled everything. Be that as it may, allow me this opportunity to extend my personal and the nation's gratitude to all those who selflessly gave their all in the fight against COVID-19, our health workers and other frontliners who risk their own safety. To keep our essential health services and our food supply chain running, boosting the economy activity and ensure peace and order in our communities. I would like also to extend my deepest appreciation for the generosity of the private sector who came to the government's aid in fighting COVID-19. I am profoundly thankful for your sustained assistance to fellow Filipino. And amidst the same deleterious effect of the pandemic to our respective industries, let me assure you that the government is committed to assess the private sector to regain the commercial vibrance of the country prior to the pandemic. To our local executives, this pandemic pushed you to step up and deliver responsive assistance. I'm glad to have seen you undertake new and heightened responsibility, working doubly hard to protect your constituents. To the international development partners who extended a helping hand amidst the global health emergency, the Philippines remembers your kindness and goodwill with sincere gratitude. And to all of you who answered the call to protect one another by adhering to our nation's protocols, daghang salamat. But then let me ask, perhaps you and to myself, what exactly is the state of the nation today? In the light of the pandemic which has paralyzed business activities and crippled even the strongest world's economies. So, where do we go from here? Looking back to our accomplishments. In my first SONA, I laid down with utmost commitment and resolve the overall direction of my presidency. A comfortable life for all Filipinos anchored on a people-centered approach to development and governance. If I remember correctly, my administration, I said, will implement a human approach to development governance in our people's welfare in the areas of health, free education, adequate food and housing, environmental preservation, and respect for the culture. I bore no illusions that steering a nation towards a comfortable life for every Filipino would be easy. Indeed, the past 5 years have truly been challenging and humbling. I stand here before you today bearing no conceit, but if there is one thing that I could be proud of, is that not once did I waver in doing the unpopular, even if it meant upholding the greatest good for the greatest number. Before I took office, our country was beset with communist insurgency scattered across the nation. A separatist movement that sought to divide us on the basis of religion and religion's deficiencies, and the proliferation of illegal drugs and criminality. Our armed forces were ill-equipped to deal with internal and external threats, while the police force had been overwhelmed by criminality and the drug trade problem. This is why I made it a priority to strengthen the institution, boost the morale of the men and women of the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police and other armed services. Again, I thank Congress for working with the Executive Department in enhancing capabilities of the AFP and PNP through our modernization program. In 2018, we raised the salaries of our military and uniformed policemen and personnel to a level commensurate to the critical role they play in upholding national security and maintaining order. I am asking Congress to pass a unified system of separation, retirement, and pension of military and uniformed personnel to maintain government fiscal flexibility and provide adequate benefits and remuneration to our men and women in uniform. This shall apply only to the new entrants of the military and civil. Hindi ho lahat. Cannot be that we have to pay so many, even the salaries of the retired. They get a chunk of the big budget. And if we include the new entrants, the funds available for them would not be enough. It is also high time for us to pass a law providing free legal assistance to AFP and PNP officers, enlisted personnel, to help them from charges arising from incidents related to the performance of official duty. the continuous upgrading of our defense capability shall ensure that shall uphold our territorial integrity and sovereignty from external and security threats. Among the new additions, we welcome the country's two missile-capable warships to enable us to protect our seas by providing them with necessary equipment, by enhancing their professional capabilities, and looking after the families of the soldiers who would not be longer be in their company. We do not only strengthen our military and police institutions, we also inspire them to serve this nation with the highest degree of loyalty and patriotism. We enable them to carry out their mandate to defeat all enemies of the state, whatever the cost. Indeed, I am proud of the accomplishments of our troops in securing our nation against all threats to our democratic institution. But peace must be realized. Peace and security is not only just a military concern. That is why we deviated from the traditional purely military approach in dealing with matters of national security. With the creation of the National Task Force to End Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-LCAC, we have made great strides in addressing the root causes of this conflict by empowering our kababayans who have been used by the communists for many decades. In our continuing effort to build state of safe and conflict-resilient barangays, we have worked towards the sustainable rehabilitation and development of communities where the communists used to operate. Through the NTF-LCAC, we invested in farm-to-market roads, school buildings, water and sanitation, health stations, and livelihood. Alam mo, kasali na tayo dito lahat. Always, every law or every regulation must pass Congress, of course, to the President. But sometimes, in our, in the performance of our duties, we encounter the not so nice of confronting each other. But because of these interventions, more than 17 former communist rebels have surrendered to government. They have returned to the folds of the law and are happily reintegrating programs or the local eclipse. It's either I am talking too fast or too slow, or the operator of this thing here is drowsy. Maybe because I had so many ad-libs along the way. Marami akong akin lang. Kaya yung nahinto ako when I stop and I'm process something in the gray matter between my ears, hindi humahabol o hindi alam ng operator. Hindi bale, ma'am, mahal pa rin kita. Lalaki ba ito o yung mga babae? Kagabi yung mga babae, sila? Sabihin mo sa kanila, magipagkita ako maya. I will embrace them for their punctuality in operating this, this strange machine that gives you the speech. With the support of our local government units, I am confident that support for the communist movement will continue to erode in the next few months. Unlike the decades-old Moro rebellion in Mindanao, we also bring an end to the armed struggle of the communists once and for all. Sa totoo lang, itong komunista, college pa ako. Hanggang ngayon, ang mga sige pa rin. So, speech mo lang ito, kunwari lang, pero ang totoo, there's a lot of fighting going on in the countryside. But I'd like to credit the police and the military for destroying so many communist fronts. In it- I think they have destroyed more than 15 apparatus or the fronts of the Communist Party of the Philippines. Alam mo, mag-istorya muna tayo sa taxation. I'd like to be frank with you. Everybody, as everybody in this country are paying taxes to the communists. The Communist Party earns billions, but pass on a little to their fighting men who die for an ideology that is so rotten and corrupt. They themselves are pocketing the money, and their children are studying in Europe and in other places, which I think none of you here can finance such journey. Yan ang masakit dito. They collect taxes, support season in Netherlands, and they do nothing but bad-mouth government and mouth war dogmas and everything. Hindi na sila napagod. It's about 53 years in the making. And until today, the poor people are dying. The cadres, and most of them belonging to the indigenous tribes of our country, are fighting a losing battle between communists and the government. They waste lives, they enlist children, and they are proud of it, but they deny it. But when you go to the mountains, such as I and Senator go many times, even during the elections, they were there with so many arms that I think somebody, an idiot here in the Philippines, supplied the firearms. I'd like to ask Congress, especially Senator Bato, kindly dig on, because we have identified the person who imported the AK-47 into this country on the pretext of using it in the security, providing security and guards in all, in business establishments, and for those who can afford their home. This policeman, I think, is still there. He was a colonel, and she is still, walang nangyari. At maraming sundalong namatay dahil sa mga armas na pinasok nila dito sa Pilipinas. So that my orders to you, if you see them walking around, kindly shoot them dead. We will be happy. Anyway, you're already charged in the ICC together with me. So what is the problem of adding another one? Another idiot Filipino who has caused great damage to our country. Yan ho ang totoo dyan. At itong mga pulis, but let me go back in time. When I first said I will fight drugs in 6 months, I thought it was like in Davao. You can either coerce, intimidate, or bribe them. or give them money. I said, lumabas kayo ng Davao, doon kayo magkalat sa Luzon at sa ibang lugar. Huwag dito sa Davao. Naniniwala naman ang mga ulol at we were able to attain a sense of normalcy in the city. Yun ho ang totoo. There are people charged with corruption and even going to prison for just maybe not telling the truth in their assets and liabilities. Nakukulong. Itong mga police were doing their thing, their drugs. They were the manufacturers and they were the distributor of drugs. When I became president, I asked De La Rosa, he was the chief of police of my city. I promoted him direct to being PNP chief. 4-star na kaagad automatic. But I told him and the others, look for the enemies. Look for where they are. And if you find them, destroy the apparatus, destroy all, from the manufacturers to the peddlers, because we are fighting a drug war that was being participated in the business by 9 generals of the PNP. Kaya yan ang sakit sa loob ko. I did not know that I was fighting my own government. Customs and everyone else were facilitating the importation of drugs. And one importation, as you can see every night on TV, the police now sees about almost 1 billion worth of drugs every day. And if you look at the 888, there are about 1,000 Filipinos arrested every day by the police in connection with drug trafficking. And that is why I go crazy looking at the situation. They are still around. We do not have the laboratories now because nawala na sila. At itong naiwan ngayon are doing the importation. The citizens of another country cook their shabu in their tugboat or something, and they threw out the product contained in the plastic bags and with the GPS attached to the contraband so that the importer could find them easily. That is how we are fighting, almost losing a battle against drugs. And now, the Sinaloa gangsters of Mexico and the triad of Laos in that area. They are busy cooking, and we have the Filipinos here with nothing in their mind except to destroy a nation, distributes them. That is what I said. I've been asked the question, and several times I gave the answer. I am a Filipino, and I love my country. I do not want my country in disarray because of drugs. I do not want families break up and become dysfunctional. Yun ang masakit sa akin. If you want to destroy a family, look for a way of the member or a resident of that family home. Biglang mga droga. Pag nandiyan na yung droga at they are hooked, and that is the end. Sometimes families are separated because of drugs, becomes dysfunctional, at yung mga masawa magpunta doon sa abroad, ika nga, to look for jobs. And you know, in the Middle East, I am not attributing it to any particular country, but there are tribes in the Middle East who are employing our Filipino citizens, and they are uniform. Everybody who comes here home asks them how many hours of sleep they have. They said it's only 3 to 4 hours. And the food is hagwas. And the sacrifice, because they send money to the families back home, and thinking all the time that the money was spent usefully, only to realize when she comes home that that family has already dispersed to nowhere. Bakit yan? Because itong mga drogista sa baba, itong peddlers, itong basurero, tawag, sa street lingo, they look for families na may mga nanay, tatay nagtrabaho, ang tatay or nanay nagtatrabaho sa abroad. And to think na iniiwan nila ang mga anak nila kung saan-saan na lang to their neighbors at the tender age of 3 to 4, 5. It breaks your heart. Iiwan lang nila sa kapitbahay kung walang mga relatives. And then, when they come back 5 years, 4 years after, they now realize that their young sons and daughters have gone into prostitution because of drugs. And their boys or the male are nowhere to be found and into the drug business also. Yun ang pinakamasakit. Masakit sa akin na ang Pilipina pumunta doon para magtrabaho because sexual abuse in some tribes in the Middle East have this notion that if you are a slave or you are a paid person working for them, sexual abuse becomes part of the territory. Kaya dyan ako pumuputok at nakakita ko yung mga pamilya na sira. And to think that they labored without sleep, eating, I said, garbage, and not being allowed to go to their own church to pray, well, that is prohibited by them. And we have been, just because of their money that they get, we just look the other way around, but still being, bothered every night and day what will happen to the next succeeding group of. That is why I have in this speech I talk about slavery. Pero yan, magprangka ako lang. I have never deny, and the ICC can record it. Those who destroy my country, I will kill you. And those who destroy the young people of our country, I will kill you. Talagang ngayon ito. Because I love my country. You can do it the legal way, but it would take you months and years. And you know what? The statistics I just learned the other night, that plenty of those who are in the middle class have been released from prison despite the fact that they are charged of trafficking which is non-bailable, and most of them are out. Babae pati lalaki ang kaso. And that is why I said, I toyed with the idea. I said, if there is still space, with due respect to the Senate President, he is a good man. He can become a good Vice President. He is holy. Ngayon, hindi na siya nahuli. Noon, huling-huli siya. But with due respect to Senator Soto, who's also running for the Vice Presidency, he is a capable man, a good man, and a Filipino. Sige ako tingin sa harap na dito para sa likod ko. You know, you are old. I've been in politics, mayor for 23 years. 5 years as a congressman dito. I work here. And 4 years working as vice mayor for my daughter, Sarah. And the presidency. I have been in politics almost 23 plus 4 plus 4. Almost 40. Kaya hindi ko na malaman ang seat arrangement dito. Hindi ko alam noon pa mga Senate President pati. Butit na lang hindi ko sinali si Velasco. Baka hindi na ako makabalik doon maya. Bale, diretso na ako uwi. I have said many times before, the bloodshed caused by the separatist movement in Mindanao is all about correcting the historical injustice suffered by the Moro people. Since the period of colonialization, with the help of Congress, we were able to pass the organic law for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Finally fulfilling a promise that was decades in the making. Our victory in Marawi is also a testament to how the Filipinos' patriotism is far stronger than any extremist group. As I've said before many times, there is no room for lawlessness in this country. Rebuilding a better Marawi remains today is still not completed. To Task Force Bangon Marawi, we need to race against time, and you have to finish the necessary work for to rehabilitate the war-torn city and bring back its families back home. But let me talk again about the drugs. I was just ahead because I was talking something else. Nag-segue ako. While we have made great strides in ending rebellion and insurgency in various parts of the country, we still have a long way in our fight against the proliferation of drugs. This problem has hounded our country for several decades, destroying families and degrading the moral fiber of our society. When the assumed office, I committed to end this problem at the soonest possible time. We launched an unprecedented war against illegal drugs and to destroy their apparatus. That permitted every level and sector of society. We wage war on the manufacturers, the financiers, the suppliers, the peddlers, and the entire syndicates, and more importantly, their protectors in government. We have rescued and reformed drug dependence because of their idiotic sense of decency. While interventions and building facilities not only for the rehabilitation, but also to prepare them to reintegrate into society. Our unyielding campaign led to the surrender of millions of drug dependents and neutralization, capture, and prosecution of thousands of drug personalities. The dismantling of illegal drugs and syndicates and the drug laboratories, the extensive drug communities down to the barangay level, and the cutting of narco politics. You know, allow me a little bit of your time. Wala naman siguro kayong lakad unless na you want to, unless you have this appointment with, I'm sure hindi babae yan. That would be a success statement. But kung nagmamadali talaga, halos na matakbo, babae yan. Kung naglalakad lang na natural, medyo less important yan. Ganon yan. Pero dito wala. I'm not making any success. I'm just saying the truth. What is the truth? It's there for all to see. Let me talk about our quest for infrastructure development. 5 years ago, the first thing I made sure was to increase our infrastructure spending to an average of 5% of the country's GDP. This is significantly higher than infrastructure spending of each and past 4 administrations. Thanks to the comprehensive tax reform program that enabled us to fund critical infrastructure projects, today we can see the tangible results